that experts say is the best way to be. I guess it's a good day to turn our eyes to the energy sector. What do you think? So we say welcome to day 2 of Channels Television's review of year 2024. I'm Ayo Makin, and of course with me is...
Amy John Mekwa. That's who I am. Well, it does look like 2024 will be remembered as the year when we saw resumption of operations in our refineries. There was Port Harcourt Refinery, and now we're celebrating Warri Refinery, and there was Dangote from the private side. Dangote also started the export of petroleum motor spirit, that's petrol. And then there's also the crude for Naira, which Dangote has attributed to the drop in the price of petrol. And this element of competition has caught up in that sector. So we see even a drop in the price of petrol in other retail stations. I don't know if you thought we would have this story in December 2024, where there's a drop in the price of petrol.
I guess we can say that that rule is being broken in Nigeria. What goes up
has come down.
Now coming down.
Oh, it's coming down.
While Nigerians are happy in it, guess who would be the happiest person today? Of course, the group CEO of the NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari. How do I know? Well, you see for yourself.
This plant is running. We have not completed 100%. We are streaming the other part of the plant as we progress. So currently, this plant is running, and you'll see what is happening, and we're bringing product into the market. There are many people who don't think this is real. As you all know, a lot of media talk all over the place that people don't believe real things can happen in our country. We believe that this is pride for our country, and that all of us have a stake, including media people, on this, so that this country becomes a greater place, and it is already happening. I just want you to know that everything you see is real.
So, well, you've seen that. And right now, of course, you can just imagine that there is at least, we talked about Olu earlier being...
yeah, he was there today.
He was there
traveler.
Today.
He was at Warri Refinery. In fact, he brought in those visuals.
Yeah.
And now he's right here in the studio. Talk about first-hand experience.
Olu, how was it for you?
I traveled and I came back.
Well, congratulations.
I traveled and I came back. I mean, that's what we need to do. We've just done what we need to do, what we signed up to do.
I mean, for years we've been talking about failed attempts to bring back any of the refineries, and now the second one.
I think what has changed, speaking very succinctly, is the strategy as to how this whole thing, because I heard comments like, how come suddenly all the refineries seem to be turning up and the flames coming up on the flare stack and all of that? Well, the truth is, first of all, you need to ask yourself questions around the turnaround maintenance that we did in the past. What happened? So it was a case. Okay, so let me rephrase it this way. We can only attribute most of all of these things to the successful passing of the petroleum industry bill into an act and becoming a law today. So most of the things you see happening today are a function or derivative from that bill or from that law right now that is being practiced, which was signed.
But Olu, you know, some people would say it's the elements of competition. We did not see the Port Harcourt refinery come to life until Dangote. We did not see the reduction in the price of petrol until Dangote did it. So one would say the consumers are just enjoying the competition element in the oil and gas sector.
Nigeria is a very interesting place, and lately I was having a conversation with someone. I said the truth is that Nigerians like to be interested in everything that concerns their life, and they should be. They should be
yeah.
as a matter of right. But sometimes it shoots to the point where people ask questions that are not particularly in tandem with how things work generally. So the truth is, a refinery does not just work because there's competition. It works because it's been switched on. It works because if there was something wrong, that thing has been fixed. It's working because if it was bad, it is now being repaired. So it meant that the processes were on when you didn't know.
All right, so you know what? Let's not put I mean, we
would have loved to actually.
No, but he is our colleague. Let's not put him on the hotspot.
How do you know he's not going to be one of them, or he's not
Well,
already
he's not yet.
Not yet.
But Olu, so what we would like for you to tell us is you were there in the Warri refinery today. You were there in Port Harcourt refinery. I guess the hottest one now is Warri refinery. Tell us what you saw, what's going on. Are we going to have some controversy? Remember what happened with the Port Harcourt? Oh, they're not refining, they're just cracking.
Let me give you an example. I know where you're going. Let me give you an example. There's a refinery in Saudi Arabia, for instance.
Sorry, Olu. Just tell us what you saw at the Warri refinery. What's happening there? What information did you gather? What can we get? Are we getting 50 trucks of petrol there daily? You know, what are we expecting from that refinery?
Okay, let me address it from the point of view of let's not have the controversy that said is to associated with the Port Harcourt refinery. To say that, for instance, there's a refinery in Saudi Arabia that started 1 year ago. Up till now, it is still stabilizing. These are machines, these are machineries, these are instrumentations. These are things that go with a lot of computerization. Now, Warri today, what we have seen, it's a 125,000 capacity refinery, barrels per day refinery in Warri in Delta State. What we've seen today is part of it coming on stream. And that part that comes on stream is the Area 1. That Area 1 currently, as we speak, by way of evidence, is producing naphtha, producing AGO, low profile oil. If you know how refinery technology works, naphtha is your base element that you need to produce the PMS. Now, 60% is what is working right now of that refinery. If you take 60% over 125, that will give you 75,000 barrels. What that means is that you are 15,000 barrels ahead of the Port Harcourt refinery. So if you put that together, you have over 130.
That's at the time it took off.
Yes. So Warri took off today officially. Doesn't mean the test run has not been on, but it took off officially today. And in a couple of weeks to come, from what we can see and the interviews I had with some of the engineers and some of the NMPC officials on the sideline, they're ramping up the remaining 40% to bring back the one. Don't you forget, in 2021.
The question
we do have a panel.
Is, do you see what you saw on ground? Is there a chance that we'll start getting petrol to X number of barrels per day?
I mean, that's
kerosene,
what Nigerians
X number
actually
of
want
barrels
to know.
per day, diesel, X number of barrels per day.
So I know that when you were rushing into the studio to start this program, you didn't have the benefit of seeing some of the pictures that we brought from Port Harcourt refinery. So we saw trucks being loaded.
From Warri, you mean?
Yes, yeah, from Warri. Sorry, apologies. Warri being loaded. We've seen the sample of the kerosene being produced. We've seen the sample of naphtha. We've seen the sample of AGO. And practically, when you see these products, you know them. And I wasn't given those pictures. I shot those pictures myself. Days like this, I want to shoot myself, like we did in 2021. So like I was trying to say in quick seconds, in 2021, Channels TV exclusively went to all the refineries and reported the state of those refineries to say that they were all grounded and they've been shut down. Now, that was at the point when the rehabilitation process started with the $1 billion that was voted for those refineries, $1.5 billion, for instance, for Port Harcourt, which, of course, didn't really necessarily have federal government funding on it. It had banks and private entities putting their equity in it.
Foreign and domestic, or just domestic?
Foreign and domestic. So that's the part a lot of people didn't. So there's no appropriation that was made on those refineries like you had in the past. So in the past, you come from Port Harcourt refineries or Kaduna or Warri, take your budget to the National Assembly, and you say you need $100 million, and they give you 50 and all of that. But now the money is there, the lenders are there, the operators are there. Dehu, for instance, in Warri, and Technomot in Port Harcourt, and the guys doing Kaduna are
long and
all
short,
OEMs.
It has taken off, and then it's evolving. I told you he's already one of them.
Yeah, I believe you. Olu's already one of them. I don't trust him anymore. Others. So let's get our panelists.
Well, what do you want to see before you
hold your horse.
Do you want a sample of? You want a sample of those products?
Okay.
I got the sample.
Coming back to you.
I got a sample of those products.
We do have a panel that will join this.
Let's be happy we have this.
Don't be in a hurry. Look, let's take a short break.
Let's just take a short break. Yes. When we come back, we'll have our panelists.
Especially because
I think we should treat Olu as a guest, not as a colleague.
I told you.
Let's take a break. We'll be back.
As Nigeria joins the conversation around climate change, around energy transition, Nigeria has sought to tell the global community that it will, as a matter of choice and decision, transit into cleaner energy sources of use, using its abundance of gas resources. And one of such is the compressed natural gas, as I said, for fuel of choice. That initiative is fast becoming a trend or some sort moving into the direction of a revolution. But there are concerns. When President Bola Tinubu announced a policy direction in favor of alternative fuel source, in this case, compressed natural gas, CNG, as a fuel of choice, it appeared like a diversion from the harrowing experience of subsidy removal at the inaugural broadcast.
The first subsidy is gone.
Since then, how has things fared? So far, there's been 2 incidences that tend to dip the processes, one at Ogun State and the other in Benin City. Unfettered, however, the superintendents of this industry have these assurances.
As a regulator, we have very stringent processes for that. Within hours or minutes of any incident, there is a report of it. An interim preliminary investigation is done to find out what the causes are and those that are involved, the scope, what mitigation plan needs to be taken. In some instances, the facility may be sealed to allow for such extensive investigation. I have received the preliminary report for the incident you referred to, and again, the causes have been highlighted, but we are waiting the final report.
You can see it's extremely heavy, and even from observation, you can see this tank is quite different from most gas-bearing tanks you may have been familiar with. So this is bulletproof, it's burst-proof. You know, it's manufactured to very, very high precision. In fact, the burst pressure is 400 bar. CNG is safe, it's environmentally friendly, and it is also cheaper than the alternative white variants. If you go to the chemistry and science of LPG, CNG, PMS, and the rest, you will see that CNG is the least, combustible among all of them.
What is a CNG policy program direction without the practicals? So we made a stop right there at the nation's capital.
Speaker conversion to come with the following. 1, pressure regulator.
So pressure regulator, pressure gauge.
The pressure gauge gives you a physical
reading of
the pressure you have in the cylinder, and also has an electronic sensor embedded in it to transmit the level of gas to the driver to know what is having left in the cylinder. So with this, there's a electronic transmission, there's a sensor on it that transmits the pressure.
Just like fuel gauge.
Just like fuel gauge. But a typical kit will also have the gas injector. Just like you have the petrol injector. If you look at this now, there are 4 injectors here. Corresponding to the number of engine that you have, so that you have 4 plugs here. Now, a typical conversion kit will also have an electronic control unit. The ECU is able to simulate the electrical signals of the petrol system, all right? Takes that signal, copies it, and uses to inject the right amount of CNG into it. You understand? So what happens is that for a given engine condition, the petrol required is about 2 mil. All right? The ECU interprets it, all right, and give the corresponding
intelligence system.
And it's
just like the gearing.
The system of this kit.
And give the corresponding amount of CNG at that particular engine condition.
They have finished the conversion. We have to do the safety review to be sure that what is to be there is where it's supposed to be, and the conversion kit used are of good quality, and all the component parts, everything was well fixed, and we are good to go. That is why it is very important to get every conversion center certified to be sure that we have the right tools there to carry out the conversion effectively.
Despite the mixed bag, there are some proud converts.
Brilliant. Wow. Wow. How much CNG do you want to buy in terms of naira?
In terms of naira, I'm using 15 kg actually.
Yeah.
So if I thought the pressure is okay, I can get 15 kg. That is 3,500.
That's all.
Yes.
So if you buy now, how long will it take you?
150 kilometers.
Commercial or private use?
Commercial.
Why? Oh, you're done.
That was study.
But with a meager 30,000 conversion done so far and 1 million targeted conversion, how ready is Nigeria to transit to low-emission sources of fuel? Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
That's Olu Philip right there. Another effort by the federal government in the area of energy. And Ayo, we had a whole lot of talks about CNG adoption, conversion price, and all of that. And once again, we have Olu in the thick of things.
You know, I was going to just take him up before you bring in the guests. Olu, it's 2024. When we talk about energy in the country, we're not really sure. Many people are not sure of what to talk about. Most people just look at fuel, petrol, generally electricity. Do you think, generally energy, how would you, from reporting the various energy sectors, think we have fared?
I know you must have heard a lot of people or experts say that we are resource rich, but energy poor. What that means is that I should have a choice between using PMS or a CNG, for instance, or an electric vehicle.
Or solar.
The choice should just be limitless to the point where, for instance, if I live in the north or in the northwest or northeast,
you can choose
my
windmill.
choice should naturally be should be renewable energy, as it were, right? So basically, you see us oscillating between today it is PMS. Everybody needs PMS for electricity. You need it for your car. You need it to run this organization. You need it to run the organizations that are not on national grid. You need it in your home, in small businesses, in large businesses.
But we're still dangling.
Yes, at other times, people want to use gas to fire their plants.
Okay.
How many people can afford the original plant that is fired by gas to now begin to fire their business?
I told you that if you leave Olu, he will be the only guest.
I think we should just bring in our guest, even though there's the other part, of this conversation with the energy. This year, we call it electricity. It was challenges upon challenges, I guess. Grid collapse.
12 times.
12 or 13.
12, 13.
Lately, I've seen about
12 times
13.
at least recorded for the year 2024.
Yes.
12 times. It went down.
Of course. And then there was also the band A
Evenly
thing.
distributed.
The band A thing also.
Did you understand what that was?
Well, I guess I'll understand tonight. Let's begin. Let's bring in our guest. We have Professor Yemi Oke. Professor Yemi Oke is Professor of Energy at the University. He's also a lawyer. Joins us from London at the University of Lagos. And right here in the studio, we have Jide Pratt. Jide Pratt is the Chief Operating Officer of IRNA, as well as the Country Director of Trade Grid. You're welcome. Also joining us virtually from our Abuja studio, we have Professor Emeritus in Petroleum Economics, Executive Director, Emmanuel Egboga Foundation in Abuja, Professor Wumi Iledare from our Abuja studio. And then also we have, thank God, Egbe, the Chief Executive Officer of Cypher Crescent Limited. So it's a full house, but I guess we can cheat and start with Jide Pratt, who's
certainly,
right here,
because he's right here with us.
So share with us, you are a stakeholder in the sector. You see a lot of things. I want to believe you're on the private sector side and all of that. From your perspective, how have we fared? Talking about energy accessibility, energy affordability, even with our energy resource rich, country that we can describe Nigeria as.
Thanks for talking to me. So let's put it this way. In a basket, you have good, you have bad, and you have ugly. So let's start with the good. How have we fared? You just talked about the report alluded on Warri Refinery. Now, whether it's 100% is not the question. The question is that it's back up after not being up for quite a while. So that's a plus. That's on the good side. You look at Port Harcourt Refinery, and we had so many different conversations in terms of, is it up? Is it giving us petrol or what you call straight cut naphtha? But regardless, naphtha is a process to petrol. That said. So it means that we have two national refineries sort of coming back on stream. We have the game changer, which is the Dangote Refinery. It's the largest single-train refinery in the world. So that's 650,000 barrel capacity. That's a good. It has triggered, and I believe I heard Ini asking something, why wait for an NPC? But you see, in everything, there's a cause and effect. I believe the Dangote Refinery, when we come to refining, takes Nigeria from a net importer to a net exporter. That's a fact. So that's a positive. You mentioned something about CNG. If we look at CNG, Nigeria sits on 207 trillion scoop of gas. What that means is that we have more gas than we have oil. That's a positive. Okay. The Executive Order 40, which the President signed some time back, became the trigger to start some of these things alongside the Petroleum Industries Act. Okay. So we have some movement, we have some motion. It's not yet Uhuru, but also look at the upstream. And we all know that the Seplat transaction, Renaissance, Shell, these all got to what you call government approvals. So they're positives. That's how I would start it. The bad side is that it took us so long. Why did it take us so long? Red tape, bureaucracy, politics. But we're past that now. So for me, what was the ugly part, or what is the ugly part? We still struggle in the oil and gas sector with data. You go to the NMDPRA website now, it's probably a year back. So we need data that is tangible. We need more gas commercialization as a country. In a nutshell, I would say we haven't fared as badly as we thought we would, but there's so much room up ahead. Those would be my opening comments.
Well, Professor, okay, I'll bring this to you now. You've talked about this for as long as I can remember. So the question that I want to ask you, and also taking from some of the issues that Ini and my colleague Olu have raised here, now it is good news, and it's part of the way Ini started is that it seems we as a nation are ending the year on a high and literally firing the new year anew. But if you will take a general assessment of the entire energy space, which one have we ticked the box highest? Which one did we have the greatest opportunity and we failed to take it? And which one gives us the most opportunities in the year ahead?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Important question. I think we lost a lot of vital opportunities years back because PIA took us so long before it could materialize. Then the reform in the electricity sector also took us a while because the reform we had was not the kind of the reform we intended. But now, we just started taking the right steps. And Olu will confirm, I was also in Port Harcourt with Tolu and the other team. I wanted to see things myself. I wanted to see the refinery in Port Harcourt work and disabuse our minds of those doubts. And we were all convinced we saw things for ourselves. So let me take you down the memory lane. If you had PIA years back, and we've been able to implement PIA the way we're implementing it, this is not where we're going to be. Now, Nigeria is now moving forward. We've had good stories to tell about the Port Harcourt refineries. Now we've added Warri. Dangote is on stream, working. We're upping our production capacity in terms of crude. Now moving from 1.5 to 2, we are still moving. We've secured fresh and new markets. We've seen gradual fall in the pump price of premium motor spirit. And we're now witnessing a kind of revolution in the CNG arena, which we've been advocating. Coming to the power sector, we lost ground because right there in your studios, as far back as 2013, we've been telling them the kind of law we had was not the one to operationalize the sector. But it took us several years. We had a new law, and we just started implementing. We predicted Lagos State was going to have its own Lagos State Electricity Regulatory Commission. Lagos State is there now. A number of other states are there. Things are happening at the level of the federal government and state. And the next revolution in the power sector will be that we will advocate the federal government may now start to gradually recuse itself of the funding liabilities in the power sector, because Nigerians can now ask their state governors what is happening in the power sector, because if you don't have electricity in Gombe, for instance, it's the problem of the governor of Gombe. If you don't have in Kaduna, it's the problem of Kaduna. So if they have electricity in Bayelsa, the people of Rivers will ask questions from their governor. That's the next journey, the next regime we're going to go in terms of energy efficiency and affordability. We've seen competitiveness even in the petroleum sector, which is now driving pump price of petrol premium motor spirit down south. And that's going to continue. We've seen the coming on board of the BUAs and other refineries with scaling up production capacity. Naturally, it's a question of demand and supply. Once supply outstrips demand, prices will go south. Once
Well, you know, Prof, my apologies for butting in. What's going on in the petroleum sector, no one can argue with. And we can have all kinds of discussions on whether or not it was the PIA that actually spiked things, or it was the Executive Order 40 that Mr. Pratt talked about here. But looking at the other energy sources in the country, there are those who will wonder. I mean, Mr. Pratt just told us how much potential we have in the area of gas. And we've been talking about this gas, whatever, for as far back as 2020, 2021, to the best of my knowledge. Then I remember, I think it's in Katsina State, some windmill that was supposed to be active has been moribund for as long as one can remember. So we have quite a number of opportunities in the energy sector that we shouldn't be talking just about petroleum or petroleum products. Isn't that so?
I agree with you. I'm totally with you on that. You know, that was why I said years back, I'm not talking of 10 years now. I'm not talking of 10 years. I'm talking of something close to 20 years. They are all documented. We said we needed to go via decentralized energy options. It's documented, written, published, and we put up the ideas there as to what are the components of decentralized energy option. That's where we are now going as a country, at every level. Now, instead of waiting for grid supplies, we can go off grid, we can go see a lot of alternatives. That's not happening. You talk of gas, there's a bit of a problem with gas. I said in your studios and others, gas remains an internationalized commodity. It is highly competitive because it is bought and sold in the international market. The regime we had was the one that expected gas producers to produce gas, and under the guise of domestic gas obligation, which was also written into the Petroleum Industry Act. You are saying the gas producers should produce gas and be patriotic in quote to Nigeria and sell for purposes of power generation. That was a problem because there was no encouragement for gas producers to produce gas. Nobody will produce gas at a loss because it's a competitive product that buyers are waiting for it offshore. So they weren't able to comply with that domestic gas obligation. Then we now told government, start to do appropriate pricing of your gas so that they can give for domestic use. Otherwise, nobody's going to give gas to the power sector. The federal government now stepped in through MBED. MBED was supposed to be a stopgap arrangement, an interim arrangement that will guarantee supplies of gas, meaning just produce your gas. Whatever is produced is bought and sold to the federal government as a bulk buyer. They will not give it to the discos. Discos will distribute. Discos got those gas. They weren't remitting appropriately. They were under remitting. They said they had a lot of course, I don't want to go into all the kind of losses because Nigerians are listening. They're not interested in the technical languages of the losses in the power sector. But the discos were not able to remit appropriately. So the federal government was now forced to bridge the gap, pay for gas given to the discos. MBED was in huge debt to gas manufacturers, and the sector was no longer looking. Those were the challenges. And we said, okay, federal government can no longer...
Prof, my apologies. Prof. I'm not asking you a question, but I'm just wondering. I mean, it goes back to something that Mr. Pratt said the other time, when he was saying that we don't have enough data. How in the universe do you intervene in a private business? I mean, you give money to a private business so that the private business that decided that, okay, no, we're buying this thing, asset and liabilities, and then you're not still giving. Maybe I don't understand it too.
So I had a problem with that.
I was going to ask Prof because he's actually my lecturer. He lectured me at some point. And
you guys can have your family meeting.
Yes, I was going to ask him. I mean, we've always had this argument that. And I'm going to put that back to him before I come to Professor Elebari to ask, I mean, are we not going to find ourselves in the same argument of the call for state police as against a federalized police with the decentralization of power to the states? Because in there, states are allowed to generate, transmit, distribute, and collect tariffs. They will have their own regulatory commissions.
Yep.
So are we setting up the entire nation again for a new rethinking and a new way of doing business because the states have to learn? And that's one. Two, a situation where the states don't have, we don't have an electricity market. How do we proceed? Prof, that's for you. But let me come quickly to Professor Elebari and ask, sir, I know we've had conversations also so much in the past about Nigeria's electricity market and all of that. Do you see a situation where the federal government at some point attempted to decentralize the transmission company of Nigeria and sell it out, and it did actually do that and bring it back onto its stake? Is that a situation we need to be over and done with for us to achieve some of the targets we set for ourselves? For instance, the 25,000 megawatts target of 2025 signed some 3-4 years ago by a G2G Nigerian and German government. Where are we on that?
Okay. Thank you. I hope you could hear me. Thank you for the invitation. Let me applaud Channel. I think you are doing your best to be apolitical, and I commend you for that. And you are actually doing your best to address issues. And I also congratulate you for that. And I want to congratulate you for doing your best to seek professionals who can talk about the issues. Yes, I can identify with your fear, and I have that fear myself with the decentralization. But I applaud that first step. We have centralized too many things in Nigeria, which has delimited the ability of Nigeria as a nation to attain its potential. And this is where I call for public education. Because you can see what's going on with the debate on tax reform bill. People should not be afraid of decentralization. We were there before, and regions were competitive and developed. Even when we were 12 states, we competed against each other. And what is good in one state is copied in another. We have stayed in the path of centralization too much. And centralized planning cannot work without dictatorial, authoritarian. But we don't have one. So we need to work on that. I'm afraid, and I think the states are working well, they're not going to be creating a NEPA equivalent. That's what we can hope for. There must be sustainability of whatever they do. Where it becomes impossible for one state to do things right, we need to begin to cooperate. But this is where governance comes in. This is where a transformational leadership mindset comes in. This is where a teamwork comes in. What we want to do going forward, we cannot get there with transactionalism. And we can understand this. We have different levels of government. Each of them has a role to play. The energy sector is critical for sustainable economic development. For every 1 million person, you need 1 gigawatt, which is more or less 1,000 megawatts of electricity. We don't have it. We can't develop without that. Centralization is not the way to go. We have started going in the right direction. We must try to sustain it. This is where governance is key. This is where policy institutions must be intellectual in their reasoning. We don't have that. We don't have that. We need to go and build our intellectual community in the energy sector if we want to add value. Let me give others opportunity to comment.
All right, thank you, Prof. So let me come to Mr. Egbe. Mr. Egbe, so we are talking about whether it's electricity or it's CNG, the abundance of resources. So even when we are talking about electricity, it shouldn't just be from gas. I did speak to a manufacturer recently, and he told me they pay about $8 for a unit of gas, which is about $2 outside the country. Now, we celebrate the resumption of operations of the refineries, but can we have a basket of resources, whether it's through the new electricity bill for the state or whether it's federal? How do we, Mr. Egbe, how do we ensure that, even in the minds of Nigerians, adoption is another thing. How do we spread our wings to adopt other sources, and not just petrol? We have solar, we have wind, and we have gas and all of that.
Okay, thank you, Ini, and thank you, Channels, for inviting me to speak about this. And I'll just start from where Professor Ileda stopped about data, about intellectuals, about leveraging technology. For now, we are predominantly using gas to generate power, the sources we have is oil and gas, but there's solar, there's hydro. First of all, is do we have the technology? We need to invest in the technology that we need at the universities. By the time we start importing all of this to actually drive it, then we struggle with that. So the first thing we need to look at is basically leverage technology, leverage data to develop capacity in country that will help us actually develop solar, develop hydro. And then, of course, maybe the gas we are looking at, we have a lot of gas around, and then how we are really leveraging that, how much gas is being fled to manage that. So the key, first of all, is basically to believe that we have to empower our system that leverages the whole triple helix model, the industry, the academia, the government collaborating together to actually drive innovation that will help us actually spread the use of different sources of energy to drive that. And so basically, I would say, let's see how we can actually invest in technology to drive that. So we don't depend so much on oil, depend so much on gas to power our system.
All right. I was going to ask you, Mr. Tangod, do you see a situation? Do you see a situation where we seem to be all dressed up with nowhere to go? I mean, we seem to know that we need to leverage technology. We seem to know that the academia must come on board. We seem to agree with Professor Iladare as regards intellectual capacity being brought together. But it appears that all of these are happening in silos. Do you see that as the challenge here?
Yes, they're actually happening in silo, and it's quite acknowledged, and lots of efforts are being done to actually make the stakeholders to collaborate. There's actually 2 months ago, there's actually a conference held in Abuja, the first of its kind in the country, where you have stakeholders from government, stakeholders from industry, and from academia coming together under the auspices of Triple Helix organization to work together to drive innovation. And the sense is to break away from that silo, break away from that industry dominating in research and then academia actually doing for publication. So it's basically what we need to see how the whole stakeholders put up a platform, what Triple Helix is actually doing. We're working with stakeholders, happy to work with the Triple organization to drive that. So once we get those working and get stakeholders in these sectors coming together deliberately, collaborate, co-create solutions to drive this. We're not only solving problems today, we're also solving problems for a long term. For Triple Helix, we actually have a vision 10, talking about in the next 10 years, can we have 10 research institutions, 10 academic institutions that have 10% equity in 10 listed companies that will drive innovation, that will drive changes in the country the next 10 years. So if we have that, this can be done only through collaboration. And that's basically what we need as a country to break down that silo where research is done for publication.
Sorry to jump in. I agree with you very, very well and so much so. But if I'm just someone who doesn't understand some of this process, let me just ask you, typical Nigerian, who should I hold responsible if we're not harnessing our different sources of energy? Who should I hold responsible if I can't choose to be off-grid, if I choose to be on-grid or partially on-grid and off-grid? Who can I hold responsible if I can buy petroleum products at the right price? And who can I hold responsible if I can turn on the switch and have it come on? That's the kind of silos I'm discussing.
It's actually, if you look at the sector, to drive changes in the economy, you need these 3 sectors to work. You have the academia to work. You also have the industry. You also have the government working. It's like a chicken and egg question. Who comes first? First of all, we need our research institution, we need our academia to actually develop innovative products that will be able to drive changes in the industry. We also need the industry to actually bring in these challenges that they have to the academia, to research institutions for it to be solved. We also need government to formulate policies that actually need to drive innovation, to drive operationalization of this research, to fund most of this stuff. So people move from Triple Helix and move into pentahelix. We have the funding, we have the entrepreneurs to empower that. So it's basically holding one person responsible. It wouldn't be fair because it's like a network system that's actually work together to look at who is going to work together. Everybody comes together to co-create this. You have the government, the responsibility to develop policies, to bring funding, You also have the academia responsibility to actually develop solutions and research on that. Of course, industry will analyze this and then send those problems down to university. So we create that. So the problem is basically a multi-sectoral problem, and it also starts with that what Professor Lemuse, the individual capacity that we have to provide that. We have oil and gas production in the country. Do we really know how much we are producing? Yes, we have a couple of issues around. But data, we have that data, we have that technology. We have a couple of countries where all the amount of oil produced, gas produced is actually recorded. You can actually stream from somewhere, you get all that. So that's basically some of the solutions that can emanate from the universities, that can emanate from research centers. I know a couple of oil and gas companies that are actually institutional research, which is really very commendable. What's happening around. So if we drive this and get this done, I'm sure that we'll be able to drive innovation that will lead to changes, especially in the oil and gas sector that has the highest amount of investment.
Mr. Thangod, we get you quite clearly. We'll just allow my colleague here, Mr. Ayo, come in. I was almost going to say that there's a colleague of mine who just said, you know what, tell them we need light. I don't know how we're going to communicate
this. That's what we want to hear.
We need light.
We need more than that.
Who is going to make
there was a
special provision for vandals? There's a question. Who vandalize this infrastructure?
Well, maybe that is part of the conversation now.
Somebody's vandalizing this infrastructure.
Let's begin to look forward to the year 2025. I mean, the basis of review is to do better going forward. And one of the things that we think we can all record, as has been scored, is that states now have the opportunity to produce and distribute their own electricity and maintain their own infrastructure and regulate their own sector.
And get revenue from it.
So that's the question now, Mr. Pratt. So the law permits. I don't know if all 36 states can do it.
Yes.
Professor Naji, I asked him one of the days we interviewed him, I mean, having done, geometric electricity in Abia State, I asked him, how long does it take to come up with a power station for generating electricity? He said it shouldn't take more than 3 years and maybe $20 million or something like that. Now, being that short a time and that finite, quote unquote, quantum of resources, what are the states, what are the potholes, the minefields that the states, any state that wants to get into it, needs to be aware of and avoid, so that they can avoid the problems that Olu has forecasted earlier?
Thank you, Ayo. So let's start from the beginning. When you have a problem, you iterate. So it starts by saying that I have 4 problems. I've solved 2. In solving 4, the 2 that are solved, 1 has an issue. So it means that I have to rework it. Now let's use Lagos State. And I keep on saying, in the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Lagos is that one-eyed man. Probity is a different conversation. But in terms of resources and passing a bill, she's gone steps ahead of everybody. So what are the legal, or let me say, what are the potholes she's likely to face? There is a fix, or shall I say, there's a cross between being capitalist and being socialist. That is the Nigerian conundrum. We're 200 million people, but we don't have 200 million people that are, and I don't want to use gainfully employed, I want to use the word productive. Some by choice, some by chance. So you find out when you go into the political landscape in Nigeria, you become able to do so much more. But at the same time, they wear what you call a political hat. I think that is the first issue they need to step away from. Competence is what is needed. So it means that if you have the best mind, yes. So that's where, and we're going in stages. If you set up this regulatory competence from the legal framework, what is doable, what is right to do, and what is wrong to do, then commercial viability. If Lagos says, for instance, let's just use an abstract example, she needs 2,000 megawatts of electricity. How much of it is commercially viable? Because there are areas that can't afford to pay, but you need to give light. So the question is that if she looks at that, then it's a mix of industry, residential, and let's say those who cannot pay. So you're trying to find a tariff model where you sell most of what you can to the places that are commercially viable, the industries. So they stop using generators. If they don't need to buy diesel and they have an IPP, an independent power project that is running them, they're paying their kilowatt hours, But they don't need to take out money to buy diesel or go and build a renewable solar energy plant. They don't need to do that. So Lagos must find what is viable. Give it to the best hands. And it's not a political game. Every time you take money as an investment, it is going to chase, capital will always chase returns. That is standard. So the first thing is the legal frameworks have to be correct. The second thing is that there needs to be commercial viability. And what is most important, in my opinion, is that there must not be a case of where I give it to Mr. Ayo because we're from the same party. If INI is the most competent...
It goes back to competence that you talk about.
If INI is the most competent, then that is what it is. She's going to be able to generate what we need.
Even if she's not even from Lagos State?
It doesn't matter where she's from.
Okay.
If we say we're
already talking about that separation is where I think the big deal is.
Okay.
Because who is going to be answerable to who? The state government will set up the same thing that is at the federal level, isn't it?
Yes.
And run it. And you're already suggesting a cross-subsidy?
Well, not a cross-subsidy. Because what I'm saying is this, Olu. If we need 2,000 megawatts, we're going to price it in such a way that the return on investment covers the 2,000. But what we're saying is that the man who runs an industry pays a higher percentage. It's not a cross-subsidy because he's running an industrial area. Look at it for power. If everybody is at home at night, then you can charge a higher tariff at night than in the daytime when there's nobody. So not a cross-subsidy, but a cross-tariff system that covers bankability.
And it's important to note that this is also, it also has incentives because the government is supposed to do this with the private sector.
Oh, yes.
And this is supposed to be business opportunities for entrepreneurs who we know have the capital, you know.
Do you think government will pull back completely and allow the private sector and what everybody is saying here? Let's to the point where the professionals will run it.
They should. They should. Whether they do is a different. But it goes back to what we say. If we have conversations, and I would say this, UpNepa is a 50-year-old problem. So it means that we haven't solved it for 50 years.
Are you sure it's not older than that? Anyway, well, Professor,
I think I want to go to Professor Ledare. So we don't exhaust on just electricity now. The issue of crude production, we saw some improvements this year. We saw some improvement this year, Professor Ledare. I wonder if we know the Tatiana Olu has been following them. They've recorded some successes. And in our budget, we have the 2 million barrel target. So are we on the right path to get this? We always talk about how it is human beings and those who are very knowledgeable in the area of oil and gas, who are working in this issue of oil theft. It's not spirits, it's not ghosts. There are individuals who are knowledgeable in that sector. So would you say we're chasing shadows with all of this effort to curb oil theft? Or are we on the right path as we head into 2025? Can we comfortably hit the 2 million barrels, even though sometimes we see OPEC has one number, the NUPRC has another number?
Well, thank you again. I want to commend everybody. Quickly, I know you don't have a lot of time, but listen. The academia has the tool. The government needs the tool for policy making. The industry needs the tool for profitability analysis. Catch up their investment. In the energy sector, if I'm going to educate the public, you cannot break even overnight. It's a long-run business. And I don't think the society understands that. I don't even think the government has an understanding of something. It's one thing to know something. It's another thing to understand it. I think we lack understanding of the oil, gas, and power sector, and that's why we're not succeeding. Now, quickly, 2 million barrels per day from a 37 billion barrel reserve is nothing. With that 37 billion barrels reserve, you can produce easily 4 million barrels per day. But you do not have the good governance. You are not governing the oil and gas industry in the way it should deliver. If you do that in 2025, I can bet
by this time in 2025 with governance structure that is effective, efficient, ethical, and equitable, you produce 4 million.
Well, I would say, Prof, that we have already, we seem to be taking that step. And sincerely apologize, Prof, for butting in, because, there are some issues we need to take up before we hit the hour. And let me just say comfortably that this is a beginning of conversations. I'm very sure Olu is going to be calling on you, and Ini is going to be calling on you, and be sure we're not going to let you be until we ensure that all the things that you are advising the nation, they are done. Professor Wumi Iledare, Professor Emeritus in Petroleum Economics, thank you so much for your time. Professor Yemi Oke is also Professor of Energy, University of Lagos, thank you so much. Mr. Tango Adegbe, CEO, Cypher Crescent Limited, as well as Mr. Jide Pratt, JP, COO, Iona, and
our own Olu Philip too.
I'm not even going to introduce him. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. Well, thank you, Olu, for what you do. We'll be right back on the top of the hour for another conversation. Do stay with us.
As the Christmas air fills our homes with joy and our hearts glow with gratitude, we at GRB Solar Investment Limited want to take a moment to celebrate with you the heartbeat of our success. From the serene streets of Abuja to every corner of Nigeria, your trust has helped us light up cities, brighten communities, and power dreams. It's because of you that our mission of illuminating Nigeria continues to shine brighter as you gather with loved ones under the warmth of Christmas lights. May the joy of the season fill your homes, and may your dreams for the new year sparkle with hope.
My name is Dr. Jimoh Baramusi, the Managing Director of GRB Solar Investment Limited. I wish all Nigerians Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. God bless you all.
From our family at JRB Solar Investment Limited to yours, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a radiant New Year. JRB Solar, the sun is going to shine on everything you do.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
Naija, land where God bless with plenty natural resources, where oil dey flow yafu. But under this land, e get dangerous truth we hide inside. Pipeline vandalism and illegal oil bunkering dey threaten we environment, we economy, and we people. But ogbonge people dey among us. Whistleblower, na them be the guardians of our nation.
Them dey risk everything to expose corruption and to protect we crude oil. Them courage dey inspire change, but them no go fit to do am alone.
Time don reach, make we join body, stand up, talk. If you see something,
make you talk something.
Better reward, na him you go collect.
Joseph Pity blow whistle. Report illegal activities to PINL 08063896937.
This message na Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited and NNPC Limited say make we tell you now. Oh, na don hear.
Everyone dreams of a better tomorrow. A tomorrow fueled by hope for the future. ARM has everything you need to go from where you are to where you need to be. Join us. Let's face tomorrow together. ARM, invested in your tomorrow.
Governor Babagana Zulum is at the Bakassi camp along the Bio Damboa Road to distribute relief materials to the victims of the flood devastation which affected the state capital, Maiduguri. Armed with the 3 billion naira flood intervention from the federal government, the governor donates cash, food items, and other necessities to the victims. He also gives an update on the situation.
So far, so good. We have mobilized cooks, and they have started cooking food in this camp. So these are immediate palliative measures that will cushion their immediate effect. So this morning, what we are here is to distribute the sum of 10,000 naira to each and every heads of household that are affected by floods. And I also want to inform you that a few days ago, luckily enough, we received 3 billion naira from the federal government as flood intervention fund. So we are using this fund to support the communities that are affected by the flood.
The governor explains the cause of the flood and the plans of the states to reconstruct the dam and contain the water.
The water that we received this year exceeds the carrying capacity of the dam. We have a very heavy storm. It might be associated with climate change. That's the most important thing. So what we need to do is to now reinforce the dam, reconstruct the dam, expand the capacity of the dam, and most importantly, defilt the drains. Because most of the waterways were occupied by human beings. If you can remember a few years ago when I was sworn in as the governor of Borno State, I followed all this route and I asked people to bucket on the waterways. But unfortunately, people don't heed to our own advice.
Families affected by the flood are being evacuated to safer grounds by the military and other security agencies.
Don't come back with this your motor here. Back properly now.
The flood is already receding in some parts of Maiduguri, while some places like the Medium Security Correctional Center is still flooded. The Minister of Interior, Mr. Olubunmi Tunji Ojo, accompanied by heads of paramilitary agencies, inspects the facility to assess the situation. Later, he pays a courtesy visit to Governor Zulum, where he gives update on the impact of the flood.
It's a sad moment, and we empathize with the people of Borno. And of course, the government is very much concerned. And in terms of our facilities, the correctional center, actions are presently ongoing. There are certain things I won't be able to disclose for at now because of security reasons, but you can be sure that we're on top of situations, 100%. The immigration passport office was affected, but the people of Borno can be rest assured that once we get back to Abuja, we will try as soon as possible with immediate effect to create another center, where they can start their normal activities. And of course, the fire service was also affected, but all this are just, to me, they are minor issues compared to the generality of the impact of the flood, on the people of Borno.
The state government plans to set up a committee to look into the possible outbreak of the disease. Nevertheless, search and rescue operation continue in parts of the state capital.
Rising temperatures around the world, not just in Nigeria. That was just one of the signs of it in Nigeria. Well, of course, world leaders have been meeting and having conversations. One major conversation that we had in 2024 was COP29. And of course, our environment correspondent was there and put this report together, and then we'll get a live details to that.
I invite parties to turn to Agenda 14. Conclusion of the session.
After an exhausting 2 weeks of negotiations, fraught with geopolitical divide, and 2 days after the conference was scheduled to end, witnessing 3 closing plenaries, COP29 President finally got an agreement in the early hours of Sunday, the 24th of November.
I hereby invite the CMA to adopt the draft decision contained in document CMA/2024 L.22.
After the applause came the harsh criticism of the process. India questioned the presidency's intentions.
Excellency, trust is the basis for all action, and this incident is indicative of a lack of trust, a lack of collaboration on an issue which is a global challenge which is faced by all of us, and most of all by the developing countries that are not responsible for it. But we've seen what you have done. However, would want to say that gaveling and trying to ignore parties from speaking does not behove the UNFCCC's system, and we would want you to hear us and also hear our objections to this adoption. We absolutely object to this unfair means followed for adoption.
The most anticipated new collective quantified goal only offers $300 billion per year by 2035 to tackle the climate crisis. It's nowhere near the $1.3 trillion that is needed, and it is not debt-free. Many say it is way too little, way too late. The African Group Chair says it is acrimoniously done. For Nigeria, it is simply an insult to the UN Climate Convention.
And I'm saying that we do not accept this. You expect us to have ambitious NDCs. The NCQG was supposed to enable us to have realistic finance goals. $300 billion is unrealistic.
But the COP29 president believes the Baku finance goal represents the best possible deal that could be reached. The representative of the EU and its member states pointed out to the delegates that this is a challenging geopolitical period, and sealing a deal truly is exceptional.
We're tripling the 100 billion goal, and we feel it is ambitious, it is needed, it is realistic, and it is achievable. And we are confident that this will be a tale of delivery.
While the deal has drawn condemnation around the world, the UN Secretary General said he had hoped for a more ambitious outcome. But this agreement provides a base on which to build. The Executive Secretary of the Climate Convention says it is an insurance policy for humanity.
But like any insurance policy, it only works if premiums are paid in full and on time. Promises must be kept to protect billions of lives.
Following what happened here, it is now clear that a lot more needs to be done in Brazil next year to restore hope in the COP process. From Olympic Stadium in Baku, Azerbaijan, the venue of COP29, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Well, I can see.
All right, so Ayola Kasim is here, and I was just telling her before we came back on that the passion exhibited by individuals who are one way or the other involved in climate change or protecting the environment is really, you can really feel it. And of course, it's understandable when we look at the flood, for instance, and see the farms and see the lives lost. Yesterday, we're talking about food, and we saw how much damage that has done to our food security this year. So it's understandable that you have a lot of passion, but where does that passion lead to? The developing countries always feel that they are victims, just feeling the impact of the industrial activities of the developed country, we have climate financing. Accessing it becomes another, and this has been the talk for years, Ayola, as long as I've started following the story. I know you know better than me, but come on. I mean, why is it all political?
Well, it is political. That's the solution to climate change. Everything is political, really.
Yeah,
Even at home, at the nuclear family level, it is political. Let's say what it is. So just imagine, this is COP29. That means we've been having this meeting for 29 years.
Yes.
And we've missed some in between. I mean, since I've been covering, we missed, that's 2020 due to COVID. So it was shifted. The COP26 in Glasgow was supposed to be 2020, but it happened 2021. So we missed 1 year. So that means we've been doing it for 30. So it started 1992. That's the first one that started the UNFCCC, that's United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, where parties come in and say, okay, this is an important thing to talk about. And since that time till now, so many conventions have been signed, and here we are. We're still bickering.
You know, what touches me particularly about the environment and climate change, Ayola, and let's, before we bring in our guests, the level of awareness over the years, particularly in the rural areas. And I'm passionate about that because that's where they feel it the most. The urban world can always modernize to deal with any eventuality. It was climate change one way or the other. That's us creating air conditioners and all those things, right? So, you know, they could always create technology, but the people in the rural areas, they feel it the more. So the level of awareness of environmental and climate change issues, how much would you say we have done over the years?
When you go to the rural areas, when you're talking to the farmers, an average farmer, you know, they are feeding us, you know that the smallholder farmers are the ones feeding us. So they will tell you the climate is changing, so they know. But then, why are we not getting to where we're supposed to be?
Perhaps they don't know what is causing the change.
So they know that this weather, okay, rain is changing, this is changing and all that. But the thing, when I talk about climate change and the problem that is happening in Nigeria is like, well, maybe climate change has exacerbated this, it has made it more dangerous. But sometimes, let's tell ourselves the truth. Sometimes it's not as bad. You know, our problem wouldn't have been this bad. You're talking about the education that the people in rural area need. Maybe it wouldn't have been this bad. Okay, let me break it down. All right, so the Nigerian Meteorological Agency will tell us that you're going to have this length of rainfall is going to be this bad and all that. What they may not be able to tell us is, okay, it's going to be, okay, they will just give us the season, like, okay, between this month and this month. So it's going to be...
And sometimes how much rain.
Yes, it's going to have this length of rainfall. So we all know that we're going to have this length of rainfall, but how it's going to come, we don't know. It should be within 4-month period, you know, then we have the break, then another 4-month period. That's supposed to be but then the weather, the nature decided to do what nature wanted to do, which we can't control. What we can control is how to deal with this. So they've told us this length of rainfall. Are we prepared for that? We are increasing population. So we're going to the green area that's supposed to absorb some of this water, and then
building them up.
We are bringing them up. So water will find its level. That's number one. Then number two, infrastructure. I've been to some parts of the country. Beautiful roads, but there is no drainage. So where would the water go? They will say flash flood. So what happened in Borno State, for instance? They've told us we're going to have this level of rainfall. And then we didn't know how long. It didn't spread for 4 months. It decided to come just within a very short period of time. And then when it came, there's nothing to absorb it. And then our dam broke. And that's when we had the problem. You see people saying, where the infrastructure? In the city, people are going on the motorway, that's the expressway, and then they're dropping pack of rice that they've eaten. They drop it on the person employed to clean the motorway decided to put it in the manhole.
It sounds complicated.
But it goes back to the fact that the level of awareness is not as significant.
So that's where we're going. So it's the human activity. So World Weather Attribution this year said that human activity is exacerbating, that's making it
worse.
Yes, you know, the impact of climate change. And I think if Nigeria needs to move to where we are now to where we need to be, we need to check that human activity such that our infrastructure
can we told the impact?
Our infrastructure and our attitude.
Attitude is...
Okay, so let's bring in our panel. Dr. Nkiruka Madrekwe was over there in Azerbaijan, Baku, and I was talking about passion. I guess it's because of you. I think we're going to get a bit of that. She joins us, Director General, National Council on Climate Change. I'm looking forward to get that passion. But what we do with the passion, I think, is even more important. Dr. Madrekwe, we also have on the panel Ibironke Olubamiche, National Coordinator, Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program implemented by the United Nations Development Program. Also joining us, that's from Abuja studio. And then Nimo Basi, environmental activist, another passionate one right there, also joining us. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Predictably, I would like to start with Dr. Madrekwe. We saw you there in Baku, and it's not the first time. In fact, I was just observing that every time we have a COP16, a COP20, COP29, it never ends on the day it was stated to end. It always spills over to a day or two because of the issues to be discussed. And we've been discussing this, as Ayola noted, for about 3 decades now. And we have a lot of passion and ideas, but it seems not to change anything. What is the world missing?
Good evening, everyone, and compliments of the season. Thank you for having me here. I would say, what are we missing? I would say as a developing country, as Nigeria. One of the things I'm going to touch on a number of things, is say that we are trying to get it right. We're actually getting it right. We're in the process of getting it right. One of the first things the government did is to create an establishment, which is the National Council on Climate Change Secretariat, which is the National Council on Climate Change, and also the Act as well. So that's the very first step in getting it right, okay? And the Act is very clear as to talking about the Climate Change Fund to help us warehouse all the climate finance that we need to be able to do what we need to do. It's a gradual process, but I can say that we're actually in the right step and taking the right step that we need to take. One of the things that the Council is doing, the Secretariat for 2025, and we've been able to identify very clearly what our focus is, which is amplifying nature-based climate solutions, looking at how do we move towards pushing the biodiversity and conservation. And then one of the first things we're doing in January, because I heard you talk about the local communities, we are going to the 9 states, the Niger Delta 9 states mangrove visitation. And that's, I'm very excited to see Chief Nimo Basi here, because we're going to contact him. It's very easy to sit down in Abuja and talk about how to create awareness without going to the site itself. So we're going to the local communities. We're going to go and see the mangrove, because that's one of the things when you talk about nature-based solutions. The mangrove is very low-hanging fruit for us as a country, and it sorts the issues we have with regards to coastal erosions. So I hope I'm able to answer the question of what do we need to do. Another thing, again, is articulating very clearly what our climate finance strategy is. Yes, we have the ETP, that's the Energy Transition Plan. We are developing the Net Zero Investment Plan. We've said very clearly in our nationally determined contribution implementation framework how much it's going to cost us to implement the NDCs. But one of the things I saw coming out of the COP29 is that if, as a country, we do not clearly articulate one document, what our climate investment strategy is, like my people will say, we may not be able to get the tail of the cow, which is out of the $300 billion that has been said that they're going to give the developing countries. You see countries like Ghana, you see countries like Kenya, you see countries, the East African countries, they are really cashing out big time on this climate finance because they're very clear what they want and how they want to do and how they want to get about it. Whether we like it or not, the climate will continue to change in layman's palace because, of course, you have, like Ayola talked about, human activities is not going to stop. We're going to continue to develop. It's going to continue to have greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to continue to have methane emissions. But what do we do? As the developing countries, we've identified that adaptation is one of the areas that we need financing for. Adaptation, we should look forward to getting grants, more grants than loans. And so when we're being presented with what looks like climate finance, but is more development finance, we need to know what it is we want and how to engage it. So I hope I haven't taken your time, but
just one quick thing before my colleague Ayala comes in. And you referenced the fact that some of these issues happen among people who don't have enough understanding of what the issues are. So speak to what she said about the what she calls the attitudes, our attitude, the human activity, as you put it, which is, well, could be said to be a product of inadequate awareness of what the real issues are. Because irrespective of the funding and policies and initiatives taken from wherever, at the end of the day, it comes back to the place the rubber meets the road.
So what you said is very key. We've understood that awareness creation is very important. So that's why I said that the first thing we're doing in January is that we're going to the 9 states. We're going to the local governments. We're going to speak to the people. We're creating climate awareness literacy to help them understand what is this climate change in your normal language. Not only that, we are also working together with the media, because we've identified that the media is a very key partner for us with regards to putting down in local man's language, what is this climate change and how does it impact me? How does it affect my livelihood? What can I do differently? Because again, it's very easy to go to the local governments, but you're talking about the elites as well, who are looking at it from that angle of saying, maybe it doesn't really concern me. Maybe it doesn't really concern me, but I'm drinking water and I'm throwing it out of my car. I'm eating whatever and I'm throwing it out of my car. Indiscriminate, waste disposal. So we are targeting both the local government, or people you would say you have to bring it down to their own local palace, and we're also targeting the elite, so to speak. And so that's why we're also going to do capacity building, awareness creation. For instance, we're going to first, another thing again we're doing early this year, 2025, is speaking to the MDAs as to what their roles are. Very important, again, I will still say, bringing the youth on board to what it is we're doing. And so part of what we're also looking at is also having a youth summit where we're asking the youth, where is the Nigeria you see in 2030? Where is the Nigeria you see in 2035? How do we speak your language in reviewing the nationally determined contributions? One of the things we also saw is that because there's lack of co-creation for these documents, people do not really understand what the documents we have and how they do apply to them. And so we've identified our very key stakeholders, the youth, the MDAs, the local governments, the states, and also identified how we're going to engage them, because it's important for us to increase awareness. I wouldn't say that is a one-year thing that can happen in 1 year, but it's a continuous effort. It's a continuous effort to bring it to their language. And that's why media is very important to us. We're not joking with the media coming 2025. Okay. For us, the media is very important to putting that message out there.
And you can be sure that we are on your side here. That's a surety.
All right. I'm sure if we allow her, she's just going to take the action. I witnessed that when we were in Baku. But then looking at, she referenced financing. So I'm going to go to Ms. Soluba-Miche. Jeff, that's Global Environment Facility Small Grant Program, has been in the country working with communities in Nigeria, to finance, give grants, actually. But, one thing we've seen over the years is like sometimes these grants, though they're meant to help, but you still have challenges. Some people with the GCF, actually, as a throwaway now, we signed with Development Bank of Nigeria, signed with the Global Climate Fund. Was accredited actually at Baku, which is a good news, but they're giving loans. But you give grants, that's Mrs. Soluba-Miche. You give grants to CSOs and all, and NGOs.
just talk us through some of the challenges. This, when we talk about grants, the slogan at COP29 is grants, not loans. But then it's not all rosy when you even have this grant, and in some ways it stops the tap keeps running dry when there is no when there's no accountability. So talk us through this challenge and how we can move from where we are now to where we want to be.
Thank you very much, Ayola, Mr. Ayo, and Ms. Ili for having me, and compliment of the season to all of you. I also want to appreciate the Channels TV. Of course, Ayola, always supporting our work everywhere we go. You are always interested in what we're doing, and I want to appreciate the entire Channels TV for that. All right, so we have been giving grants for the past about 15 years now. The Jeff Small Grants Program started in Nigeria in 2009, and currently we have supported community environmental initiatives in over 200 communities. We have supported over I think as at the last count, we have about 225 projects, community projects that we have supported. And of course, the money, the grant is meant for the communities. But because Jeff also understands that some of the communities cannot produce the proposal that is needed for them to be able to participate in these environmental initiatives, yet they have ideas. And that is the reason why we work through civil society organizations when they have identified with the communities and they have had discussions with them. Because one of the things we'll find out in some instances, yes, awareness creation is very important. Some of them are not aware. Some are aware, but they don't know what to do. Some know what to do, but they don't even know where to get the support that they need. And that is where we come in when we see civil society organizations coming in. And like we are saying, of course, the grants, the challenges, some of the challenges we have basically is that for some of the NGOs, some of them have good intentions, but to put together, to synthesize their ideas together, to make it to have a sustainable impact, that is one of the challenges that we have. Many of them, one of the things we are preaching, so to say, to them now is, you are not just implementing a project for 1 year, for 2 years. What happens 5 years down the line? What happens 10 years down the line? And this is what we have been telling them, that, look, don't always think that it has to be, you have to go cap in hand, always having to go look for donors every time. But whatever you are giving, whether as a first timer or as maybe a continuous one to replicate or to upscale, please put in enough and very, very serious sustainability plan into your project, such that the communities after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, they can still, the awareness that is created, the skills that has been built, the capacity that have been built, and the tools that have been provided will actually be able to be replicated amongst them or even extended to other communities. So that's one or another challenge that we are having with some of the civil society organizations. Some, I will just say, some of them are like, oh, there's money somewhere, and let's just go for it. And so we have to really go back. I'm sure, Ayola, you're aware of this review of proposals and saying, no, you have not articulated what you want to do very well. It's not just enough. We are ready to support environmental initiatives as long as this money keeps coming. And Nigeria has not said we are not interested again. But are the civil society organizations ready to actually do the needful? Okay. Not just implementing a project for 2 years, but sustainable. So we also make effort to build their capacity.
Sorry, Mr. Olubamishi. I mean, you deal with them. You have to deal with the issue of requirements and qualification to get this grant. doesn't that present a good opportunity for this awareness and knowledge sharing, about some of those activities that we are talking about that could actually, perhaps the grants can be an incentive for them to follow what they're supposed to do?
Exactly, that's what we're doing. You see, one thing I have come to realize is that Nigeria is very big. People are doing things at their corners. Because what I used to tell people, what I still tell people is that, yes, the global community is discussing about climate change. How does it affect you personally? How does it affect your family? How does it affect your community? How does it affect your bottom line? Is what I think we should, because, of course, we are leaving the policy, we are expecting the government to take charge of the policy aspect of managing the environment and climate change, as the case may be. But again, the communities, every project actually building a measure of awareness creation, and we go ahead of it. SGP will ask you, it is not just to train them, it is not just to build their capacity. They must be able to put this training, the skills, to practical demonstration. Perhaps such that when you go, then they are able to repeat it themselves.
Perhaps, Mrs. Olubamise, perhaps one of the challenges, my apologies, perhaps one of the challenges is the disconnect in the issues. So let me ask Mr. Bassey this. You're an activist, you're an environmental activist. Yesterday we were talking about food. It was all over the place about the impact of flood, which is an environmental issue, on food production. So perhaps one of the challenges we've had in connecting the dots for our people is the impact of one on the other. Impact of environment on food production, impact of environment on economic growth, impact of climate change on whatever else it is. How well would you say we're doing in that space of connecting the issues that affect us on the streets every day? Where environmental issues, how they affect the economy directly. How are we doing in terms of connecting the dots?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for hosting this program and compliments of the season. Now, the dots have been, there's been a lack of connection of the dots for a long, just not starting now, for a long time. When we talk about sustainability, the environmental aspect is often ignored. Because when the economists and the politicians speak, they're looking at how much money they can make. And so the economy, it always takes a higher level of consideration. But the challenge again is that when you neglect the environment, what you think you are gaining, you're actually losing. This is why working at the grassroots is extremely important. And our communities have become laboratories of disaster, I would say. For example, I'm happy that Dr. Madueke will be visiting Niger Delta because if you go to some of the communities, they will show you on the walls of their buildings. This is the level of the flood we had in 2012. This is the level of the flood we had in this year. The marks are there. Nothing has changed. They've not changed their buildings. They've not moved to anywhere else. They are just battling to survive the flood. And so what I believe we need to tackle, apart from just creating awareness, is to intensify more efforts in climate literacy, which is where you're going to connect the dots, so that politicians understand that you can't discount the environment. The environment is our life. You have to invest. The Ministry of Environment doesn't receive the amount of resources that it should receive, because perhaps that is not being considered as a major area to invest in. The Ministry of Agriculture is getting about 2% of the budget, whereas the African Union recommends 10%. And so when you don't invest in this key sector that supports human life, it's very, very, it would be wishful thinking to think that you're going to achieve a different result. It's what you put in, you're going to get out. And so the literacy we're talking about requires a lot of humility. Policymakers have to go to where the people are battling for survival and learn from them, hear their stories. I believe this is what the SGP under Mrs. Olubamise is doing. They're actually working very closely. I've followed their work. They've supported our work. I've followed their work on social media, on LinkedIn, everywhere. And these things are very well laid out. That to really kickstart the economy, to promote the development that's people, pro-people, you have to focus on the environment. You can't do it any other way.
All right, Dr. Nimo, you just talked about the government, making policies and then making sure that people know, helping people out. And I know that you have been in the climate justice space. That has been your thing, fighting there for the Niger Delta people. You're more known for that than any other thing. And in Baku, of course, you're leading the protests and they're talking about grants, not loan as well. And this year, one of the major things that happened, towards the end, first week of December, is the International Court of Justice, hearing from different countries about the responsibilities of nations, the countries to climate change. How do you think this will impact, the things that you're talking about, with what you're doing in the climate justice space, as well as the economic development that you talked about regarding, the government policies?
Well, thank you for bringing that angle. The truth is that to change the behavior of citizens and governments and corporations, we need to intensify work on the legal field. And that is why connecting environmental or climate misbehavior to the rights of the people, right to life of the people, is very, very important. But unfortunately, the world is moving in the direction of disregarding multilateral legal system. The United Nations is being ignored by some countries. They simply just ignore whatever they say and go on doing what they want to do. So you have a system where more and more powerful nations are ignoring the collective, then you're going to still have the problems. Look at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We talk about the COP. I've been attending so many COPs, I have a fatigue right now of COPs, because every time nations are meeting to negotiate and avoid responsibilities and not to accept to do what is right. The justice basis, which is a common but differentiated responsibility, is almost on life support, because the countries who created the problem are not willing. The corporations who fired up the problems are bringing a lot of delegates to the conferences to ensure that things are not done the way they should be done. So I believe, for example, that the campaign for the law of ecocide, which will require environmental damage to be considered in the same bracket as genocide, as war crimes, as crimes against humanity, would actually help those who are creating the problems to step back and contribute to solving the problem.
We need to get them to solve the problem, get us all to solve the problem. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bassey. But let's just take a break now. On the program, we're still looking at 2024 in review. What has happened? What should happen to make us better in 2025? We'll continue on the environment and climate change after this break.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
and cable. Great quality, now with the new look. Be a part of the end-of-year promo. Shop exquisite Swiss trade doors of all types and sizes, onyx stones and home interior furniture at the lowest prices ever. Don't miss out on top quality products at prices you only have to see to believe. Come, see what's available and make huge savings in the end-of-year promo. Offer lasts while stock lasts. Swiss Trade, a blend of beauty and security.
Season's greetings from the Federal Road Safety Corps, Nigeria. Road crashes don't just happen, they are caused. The Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Corps Nigeria, Shehu Mohammed MNI, therefore enjoins all road users to avoid road vices such as speeding, overloading with goods, human beings and animals, use of phones while driving, night trips, driving against oncoming traffic, driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol, non-use of seatbelts, wrongful and dangerous overtaking, lane indiscipline, and other road traffic use violations. Always drive to save lives. And remember, road safety is a shared responsibility. This message is from the Federal Road Safety Corps, Nigeria.
Strength, pride, optimism, happiness runs through our veins. High blood pressure shouldn't. 1 in 3 adult Nigerians may have high blood pressure. Do you? Omron provides a solution for checking your blood pressure anytime, anywhere for you to avoid critical cardiovascular diseases. To keep Nigeria healthy, proud, and happy. Omron blood pressure monitors are clinically validated devices that give the same consistent, accurate blood pressure readings. Give a gift that keeps giving this season. Get your Omron blood pressure monitor today and take control of your health. Distributed by New Heights Pharmaceutical. Omron, all for healthcare.
Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for the Bulldozer! Fighting for the belt from the Bulldozer is the fearless challenger!
The fighters facing the odds. Your dream of home ownership may seem challenging. Have no worries. We are here to partner with you to make it possible. With our flexible payment plans, great discount offers, and affordable housing products, you are already one step ahead. No hassles, no worries. So team up with us and let's win this together. Agron Homes.
Building cities, communities, and homes. Be a part of the end-of-year promo. Shop exquisite Swiss trade doors of all types and sizes, onyx stones and home interior furniture at the lowest prices ever. Don't miss out on top quality products at prices you only have to see to believe. Come, see what's available and make huge savings in the end-of-year promo. Offer lasts while stock lasts. Swiss Trade, a blend of beauty and security.
You're still watching a reflection of happenings in 2024, Channels Television series reviewing the year, the different sectors of the year. Of course, we started with food security yesterday, and then we also looked at today, we've done the environment, we've done the almighty power, and we have right here in the studio, apart from Ayo, we're co-anchoring, we have our environment correspondent sharing time. So, and of course, we have a whole panel. Well, I will go to the DG now, Dr. Oluwabamiche. The issue of political will, even when there are funds, is also another one. You are in government. Tell us, does this administration have the political will, not just on paper, not just in accessing the fund, but actually doing what it ought to do to get the people involved? We've talked about the habits of the people. What about the habits of the government?
I think that's Dr. Madukwe.
Thank you very
Madukwe.
much. I think is the question meant for Dr. Kiruka? She's the one in government.
Yes, that's Dr. Kiruka. Yes, the DG. That's for Dr. Kiruka.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would say that, of course, the government has the will. If it doesn't have the will, it would not have created a climate change fund. That's what I would say, that the government is doing everything within its powers to be able to provide the finance that is needed. Also, you have the Ministry of Finance and Budget and Planning ensuring that the budgets of ministries, departments and agencies are aligned with climate actions. So, of course, the government has that political will.
And we see it how?
Sorry?
The actions that show that the government has the will, how much interaction, how much collaboration with the people have we seen?
I would still say that, again, that's why you have the National Council on Climate Change Secretariat to serve as the coordinating entity with the ministries, departments, agencies, private sector, and individuals. And that is what we're doing. And that's why we're telling you that the first things we have is to go to the field. And that's that interaction that government has, and that's the political will. You cannot say any other political will than creating the National Council of Climate Change Secretariat as the coordinating entity that bridges the gap between the policy makers and the policy, you would say, where the rubber meets the road. And that's exactly what the National Council of Climate Change Secretariat is doing.
So can we say the perception of bureaucracy and not so transparent actions, corruption and all of that, can we say that has been eliminated in the system?
I would say, okay, first things first, looking at, so let's take transparency. When I came into government, when I came into office in June, one of the first things we said was that we're doing climate accountability and transparency. For the very first time, we created digital platform to request for COP applications for COP. We did not have anybody send in any paper request. Why did we do that? Because we wanted Nigerians to see real time who requested to go to COP, who was accredited to go to COP. And we have to ensure transparency. One of the things we're also requesting from partners is for them to tell us, who did you give finance to and what is the finance used for? That is also government taking charge of accountability and transparency with regards to the finance we're receiving, to ensure that we're receiving climate finance and not development finance. So that is number one. Number two. Number three as well is, again, what we've also done is to open up the portal for persons to interact with the Council on Climate Change Secretariat. For instance, we had asked for NGOs and CSOs to tell us what they are doing in the space. It may seem like nothing much has been done, but we are consistently engaging with the public to say, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. We're also bridging the gap between the subnationals and the nationals. Because one of the things we saw is that a lot of things are happening at the subnationals, but it's not reflected at the national. And there's that gap in terms of communication between the subnationals and the nationals. And everything we did and everything we've done in 2024 is to bridge that communication gap. So I would say very much with regards to accountability and transparency, that government is doing a lot. With regards to corruption as well, we are a very open book. And we've said, this is how much we are receiving. This is how much we want to tell you we're receiving. And that's what we're asking the development partners to tell us. And that's why we also created the accountability transparency portal, which is the core portal that we did. For the very first time, it has never been done, that you see clearly who asked to be accredited and who was accredited and who went to COP.
Okay.
Because for us, transparency is very important to this government.
Okay.
Accountability is very important as well to this government.
You know, one of the things that usually bothers me, and I'm taking this to Mr. Nemo Bassel, that's the way to me, just to be sure. Now, is that many times when we talk about these issues, developmental issues, it's exciting to talk about at the federal level. But Mr. Bassi, the issues are down there in the states. You live in Uyo. I mean, at least that's where we are speaking to you from right now. And the Director General, Dr. Maduekwe, has said that they're going to come visit you. So in terms of the understanding and execution of international treaties and agreements and all in the various states of the country, of Nigeria in particular, what's your understanding of the interpretation of these international treaties on the soil in each of the states? What's the level of understanding of the state governments? I think you are the one that talked about the political influences the other time. So what's the understanding from your perspective of the issues in the states?
I believe that the states are quite aware of what is going on, what the challenges are, because they live closer to the people than mostly in Abuja. But again, I would say that in terms of political will, sometimes there's willfully ignoring the reality. I see that at all levels. And I'll give you one example. One example is that in May 2020, the Ororo 1 oil well off the coast of Borno State in very shallow water blew up and been burning and spilling for more than 4.5 years, going to be 5 years next year. So you're having this fire burning of gas and oil burning and spilling in the ocean, in the near onshore, completely affecting the fisheries, the livelihoods of the community people, and nothing is being done to stop that fire. I mean, the water at that level is just about 10 meters deep. The Gulf of Guinea oil spill was in the water that was about 1.5 kilometers deep. And so this is something that was said could be handled within a few weeks. But we're going towards 5 years. So this, to me, is willful blindness, because the government is well aware of it. It's exacerbating climate change. It's destroying livelihoods. It's posing danger, security, human rights issues, but nothing is being done. So if I use that as an example, I would score the government very low in terms of connecting with the grassroots and what is going on. Okay. And I want to see that fire stopped, so that I know that at least we know that this is a flame that is releasing tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Apart from the gas flare that is going across the Niger Delta, that is one very sore wound, open wound.
All right. And, environment issues differ from state to state, from region to region. So, Dr. Bekebad, Ms. Oluwamiche, I'll bring the same question to you. I mean, a UNDP program is anywhere, they are everywhere, all over the nation. So, in terms of an understanding of the environment and climate change issues that we have to deal with in our country in 2024, and looking forward, what are the things that need to happen at the state government's levels so that we can have a better result as opposed to what we had in 2024?
Thank you very much again. And I think at the state level, just like Dr. Nimobasi has said, and then of course the director said, there needs to be a connection between the states and the people. I remember I was at the Niger Delta Climate Change Conference some time ago, a few months ago, and I was taken aback. The people who organized this Niger Delta Climate Change Conference invited all the relevant state governments in that area. But of course, it wasn't really a good thing that the people that came are not even the people that could make decisions, so to say, many of them. They are also like passionate people like us, but they are technocrats. They are technical people who work in the ministries. But the people who need to hear this story, who needs to identify with what is happening, I want to say that in the Niger Delta, even if you don't talk about climate change, they are facing serious environmental problems. I have been there and almost in tears. I mean, you have, don't let us just go there. You have young people dying of strange diseases just because their waters have been polluted. Their environment have been destroyed, not even destroyed, that they cannot do anything there. And then they are, in some parts, the politicians kind of inciting them against themselves. And then they are not even able to do what they ought to do. So I think the state government needs to, the political will is very important. There is nothing that can really be so massive that will affect many people at a time, and I mean corporately, without the state government being part of it. Because they are the one that will make the policy. They are the one that will show interest. Then whatever efforts, whether individual groups, activists are making, will now be like addition to whatever they are going to do. And of course, whatever they are doing will help the people to be able to know that, okay, the government is after our interest, then we can...
Let's just hope that the lessons are learned now. Otherwise, I mean, we're still going to be in the same...
As we head to 2025. I know, but then quickly, just before we go, because the nationally determined contribution, that's our national plan, we're supposed to have submitted, but we have till February. I want to know what the DG, since she's in charge of this, what we should expect in the new NDC 3.0. And also, Dr. Nemo mentioned the pollution, which is the you're talking about the monitoring of the short-lived pollutants. Why focus on short-lived when we have long-lived pollutants as well? Quickly, in 1 minute, if you can do that for us, please, as we're going.
All right, I'm going to touch a bit on the short-lived, if you don't mind. I know Chief Nimo is going to touch on it. So one of the things we're doing is the ICAT Phase 2, and that's also looking at the monitoring, reporting, and verification. And then very important as well for us is we've targeted methane and black carbon. So we're building capacity on monitoring, reporting, and verification, because that's one of the gaps we saw when we did the national stock take. We saw that a lot of things are happening, but people do not have the capacity to monitor, review, and verify. And so we're building that capacity. Then to the NDC 3.0, third generation NDC. So for us is creating, co-creating this document. A whole of society, a whole of government approach to developing the NDC 3.0. And so it's very important for us. We're also bringing on board relevant stakeholders. And I'll say again, the media is part of the persons, the people that we're bringing on board. We're having academics as well, to have also the relevant MDAs as part of co-creating.
All right, Dr. Madrekwe. I mean, I know Ayola will follow up on this, and the media is your friend because we need to make our own environment and climate really full. So I want to thank you so much. Our panelist, Dr. Nkiruka Madrekwe, is the Director General, National Council on Climate Change. We have Ms. Bironke Olubamishe, the National Coordinator of Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program. That's by UNDP. And then Mr. Nimo Bassi, environmental activist. Thank you so much for being a part of this 2025. We hope will be a year of collaborating with the people in the rural part. That will help us. Thank you so much for being a part of this program. So that's it. I mean, we're being pushed out of the studio almost physically. We have to tell you that. But we are back tomorrow, 6 p.m. It's tomorrow. It's the grand finale, the final day in 2024. And then we will have the final sectors being dissected. I'm Ini John Mekwa. I'll be back with Ayo
Makinde,
but not with Ayo Ola. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Politics.
cable. Great quality, now with a new look.
Be a part of the end of year promo. Shop exquisite Swiss trade doors of all types and sizes, onyx stones and home interior furniture at the lowest prices ever. Don't miss out on top quality products at prices you only have to see to believe. Come, see what's available and make huge savings in the end of year promo. Offer lasts while stock lasts. Swiss Trade, a blend of beauty and security.
But why won't I be happy? Not just because it's festive season. It's moments of friendship and 60 million reasons to love. Small Pepe.
Babes, this dress is given. Don't forget the earrings. Those are 2 reasons already.
The best reasons will make your heart beat.